New York Rangers trade Ryan Reaves to the Minnesota Wild for a fifth-round pick in 2025. Good guy, and I think that he served a purpose when the Rangers sort of Gallant comes in. He's used to Ryan Reaves from Vegas. And Reaves played 69 games last season and most of the playoffs. He was a healthy scratch in game 5 and 6 against the Tampa Bay Lightning. But this is a really good move. I'm not discounting what he brings to the locker room. I definitely think that it'll have some effect, maybe initially, but Ryan Reaves wasn't playing really much at all recently, which was the right decision. I have spoken a lot about, I don't like the temptation of Reaves being in the lineup. He makes the fourth line worse. And I don't believe that he was really that much of a deterrent. Like if someone wanted to take a run at a Ranger, I don't really think that Reaves, it's not that he didn't get into fights. It's not because of that, but I don't think that necessarily changes anything. And even if that was to be true, that fourth line becomes basically a definite negative if he's in there. Now, I'll give Reaves some credit for like during the Pittsburgh series and I guess during the Carolina series as well. Reaves wasn't like horrible, but still, you know there's going to be no goal scoring. It's just a matter of like, please don't give up goals against. And he was only a -1 during the playoffs. But, you know, last year during the regular season, a -13 on a good Ranger team. And, that was, I think that was the worst plus-minus on the team. He was a -5 this year in 12 games. The point is that Ryan Reaves, especially with the way that today's NHL game is, he just can't keep up. And he was paid $1.75 million. That's really, like, honestly, $1 million more than he should be making. Maybe that's a little bit too harsh. But that's very important cap space. No salary retained by the Rangers. Minnesota takes on the full contract. And so that gives the Rangers much needed cap space for the trade deadline. Like, much needed. They really were tight up against the cap. And this gives them a little bit of breathing room. And they get a fifth-round pick as well in 2025. Like, to me, you get a draft pick. You clear out that cap space. That's a win. Total win. Trading Ryan Reaves. And like I said, really good guy who had a presence in that locker room, the whole release us. Like, he was definitely kind of part of the identity, kind of like I spoke about, where it felt like last year was the beginning of something new. Like, the core of the team had already been there, but you bring Gallant in, you bring Reaves in, Goodrow as well. Like, it felt like that, those things did have a positive. Even though Ryan Reaves wasn't good on the ice, he really wasn't. I can still appreciate what he brought to the table, but with all that being said, this is really good. And look, for Minnesota, I guess I'm not as plugged in on the Minnesota Wild, but I guess they felt like they needed a enforcer type. I know that they had Nick Delorier last year. And I don't know. I guess for whatever the reason, Ryan Reaves, he is from Winnipeg, so not too far from Minnesota. He has ties with Bill Guerin. I believe Bill Guerin, and Reaves was on the Pittsburgh Penguins for a very brief amount of time, but I believe Bill Guerin was an assistant general manager. There is a link with Guerin and Reaves, maybe even beyond that. And Ryan Reaves also requested, I should also mention, Ryan Reaves also requested this. So it was a mutual situation where the Rangers, Ryan Reaves was not going to play a whole lot. His last game was, as it turns out, at Nashville, which was during the dad trip, so at least his dad was able to see him. But he hadn't played in maybe 5 of the last 6 or 6 of the last 7. Rangers have played 20 games this year, and he's played in 12 of them. He was playing a lot in the beginning, and that hasn't happened now for a while. But Ryan Reaves apparently requested the trade when they were in LA, or at least when they were on this West Coast trip. He knew the writing was on the wall. He wasn't going to get in there. It wasn't like he was even the next guy in. Vitaly Kravtsov would have been the next forward in the lineup. So Reaves was really kind of low on the depth chart. Of course, injuries can happen, but this is a very good thing. Again, that temptation. And Gallant, I think Gallant knows that Ryan Reaves just isn't quite, he just can't keep up anymore. I think he knows that, but yet still, I was, concerned that he would be back in there. For me, whenever I heard that Ryan Reaves was a healthy scratch, it was kind of a relief. Not that it necessarily reflected in the win-loss category, but now I think it kind of is. That fourth line with Blais, Carpenter, and Gauthier looking pretty good. And I think, like I said in previous episodes, Julian Gauthier's emergence, I think, also made this happen. If Gauthier was never called back up, like, you're looking at a different thing. Ultimately, Reaves, I think that Reaves would have been gone probably at some point anyway. They would have figured out another thing, but Gauthier really doing well, I think, really expedited that process to get Reaves out of town. But, you know, wish him nothing but the best. Really, he's a good team guy. I think he'll be really good. I wouldn't be shocked if he retires after the season. You never know. Maybe he'll give it another go. We'll see how he does with Minnesota, but would not be stunned. He's definitely at the end, and I could definitely see him being a really good TV personality. Really very charismatic guy. Well-spoken. I really think that he'd be good. You know, I kind of picture like him and Paul Bissonnette kind of going back and forth at it. I'm not sure if they want to have two guys like that on TNC, but I definitely think Reaves, he'll find himself somewhere. He'll probably end up back in Vegas. Like that was really where he made, even though he was in St. Louis for years, and I think about him as a Blue, you really kind of more think about him as a Golden Knight. Really, he was a big part of that 2018 run that they had, and it seems like that's kind of where he resides now. So, you know, he's been in the league for a while. He's played 767 regular season games. It's been a good career for Ryan Reaves, but this is a good thing for the Rangers to move on. And now it gets interesting. What will they do as the trade deadline? And we're not there yet, but when the trade deadline gets closer, because for a while I'm thinking, like, people are talking about Patrick Kane, and it's like, how is that even possible? Now, and I'm not even saying, I have to think about it more in terms of whether I think that Kane is like the right guy. That's a conversation for another day. But now at least that possibility exists. The cap, there is, and look, and even still the cap space isn't ideal, but it's a lot better than it was before this trade. And so I'm really happy about that, because this team, they're going to need to make trades. It's not going to be like last year. They're not going to have that ability to make, you know, multiple deals. It might just be one or maybe two. But still, now that they can do that, you know, I think that there's a third pair, you know, defensively, on forwards and defense, you could go either way as far as what you might need. Maybe it's one defenseman and one forward, or maybe it's just one player that takes up a good amount of cap space, and that's all it is. But we'll see what Chris Drury has up his sleeve. Good job by him being able to make this deal, and for the Rangers to even, look, a 2025 fifth-round pick probably won't amount to really much of anything, but just to even get that and not retain any of that $1.75 million is a really good job. Again, Ryan Reaves traded to the Minnesota Wild for a 2025 fifth-round pick.